This mas'ala, this issue it's from daqiq al-kalam. It's from the more very subtle aspects of theology. It's not something I think really people should get involved in. Ahmad ibn Hanbal was famous for standing up against the Mu'tazilite. The Mu'tazilite argued that the Qur'an was muhdath, that it was created. The Sunnis arrived at, there's two different opinions. One is the Athari opinion, which is Ahmad ibn Hanbal's, where you don't go into details. You just say, Al-Quran kalam Allah ghayru makhluq. It's kalam Allah and it's uncreated. The other one is the more subtle, which is the Ash'ari and the Maturidi position, which is that the uncreated Quran is madlul al-lafzi al-qa'imi bi dhatillah. It's what the indications of, but the mushaf itself, and the ulama say you can always say this in a teaching, just out of adab to the Quran, we don't say it, but the mushaf itself came into the world, the paper, the ink, right, and then the letters, and when if I say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, those are sounds. And we know that they have vibrations, and so that aspect of the Quran, and this is the distinction they say, is all of those elements are created. And like in Idatul Jannah, إنما كلامه قديم ما فيه تأخير ولا تقديم نعم ولا لحن أو إعراب وكلنا وبعض اضطراب إذ كله إلى الحدوث انتسم ككون علمه على مكتسبة. So he's saying that everything, the kalam of Allah is qadim. There's ma fihi ta'khir wa la taqdim. There's no first and last. It's not linear in that way. So this is really about the logos. And this issue came up because the Christians asked this. They said the kalima, that Isa is the kalima of Allah and the kalima is qadim and this and that. So we say Al-Quran karam Allah ghair makhluq. I mean, that's our position, and it definitely doesn't mean though the mushaf that you have in your house, because that would then, some of the Christians argue that, well, the Quran is imbibliation. Like we believe in incarnation of the Logos, the Muslims believe in imbibliation of the Logos. That God became book. And so we wouldn't see that as a valid view of it. So.
Barakallahu feekum. Next question is, I heard Shaykh Hamza translating the Quranic word taqwa to God consciousness. Some imams in Italy still prefer the meaning of quote unquote fear or being afraid or frightened. I would like to know the basis of this choice, why and how. Thank you.
Well, yeah. First of all, when we do these, there aren't really translations, they're interpretations. And that's why A.J. Arbery, despite the fact that he was a Christian, as far as I know, he may have been a crypto-Muslim, and Allahu A'lam. He seems to indicate that in his introduction. But A.J. Arbery, I think, was one of the few quote-unquote translators of the Quran that really got it right, because he said an interpretation of the Quran. Because you cannot translate the Quran. There's far too many nuanced meanings in Arabic. And then the thing about Arabic, in some ways it's the most precise of languages. In other ways, it's a very ambiguous, because it allows for multiple interpretations. Like many things, language is like that. Language is very hard to pin down. And this is, Derrida created a whole philosophy out of the impossibility of pinning down words, because words are self-referential. You look up a word, like if you look up a word in the dictionary, like pool, and so you look that up, it'll say a basin of water, and then you look up basin, and it says something that holds water. So, and this actually, when you study material logic, you'll really understand why Derrida is completely wrong, because concept precedes words. And so the concept is grasped. The word is just a way to articulate the concept that precedes the word. And this is why thought precedes language. It's hard for people to grasp that, but thought actually precedes language. So language is a vehicle. So I would, what do you think?
We had this discussion yesterday.
Oh, mashallah. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah. So what did he want to know? About taqwa?
Being
So I would say taqwa is one of those words that is a comprehensive word in the Qur'an. Probably the closest word is pietas, the Latin word, which is used for, which we use in English, piety. And piety is dutiful obedience. It's kind of, so in that way you're God conscious, you're aware of your duties, so you're fulfilling your duties, you're conscientious, and so that's how, a God-conscious person is going to fulfill because they're aware of God. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ said that ihsan was an ta'budullah ka'annaka tarahu, to worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you don't see Him, you know that He sees you. That's a God consciousness that is going to, I'll give you a really good example. Okay, most of us, not all of us, but most of us speed on the highway, right? Like, I don't. Sometimes. But most of us do. But if we see a policeman, suddenly we're like going the speed limit. You always see the red lights go on, right? Everybody's like cruising down the highway and suddenly all these red lights go on, and then, you see the black and white. That's because he has police consciousness. So suddenly he's obeying, he becomes consciously aware of the police, and then he becomes dutiful. He fulfills his duty to drive at the speed limit. Well, that in essence is what God consciousness is, that you're always aware of God, and so you're always going to follow the rules, which is what taqwa is. Because hasidu taqwa, Ibn Ashur says, hasidu taqwa ijtinabun wa imtithal fi zahirin wa batinin bidha tunal. Like, it is an awareness of God that you fulfill your obligations and you avoid the prohibitions because you're consciously aware. So that's why I like that term. But it's certainly there are other terms that could be used for it. I mean, the root word is to prevent or ward off harm, and so in that way, there's kind of a fearful awareness, of harm, the possibility of harm. So they're all interpretations.
Thank you for that. There are lots of questions about memorization. Let me try to take this one here. In terms of daily recitation of Qur'an outside of Ramadan, should priority be given to reciting recommended surahs like Yasin, Waqi'ah, Mulk, Sajda, and so forth, or completing a daily juz?
That's a really good question. If you are somebody who is doing devotional practice and you have then I would say it's really good to do those Yasin in the morning, and then Waqi'ah after Maghrib, Mulk, and Sajda is also encouraged before you sleep. And then on Friday, Kahf is a practice of the Prophet, and Hud, both Kahf and Hud. So those are pretty long chapters. So those are really good to do, but it's very good to do a juz every day. If you could do both, that's kind of ideal. If you had to choose one or the other, it depends, I think, on what you should still be reading the Qur'an. If you don't do it every month, you should still be trying to read it a few times a year all the way through. So I would do something on top of those practices, even if it's like work out how much it would be, like a thuman or a ruba' or nisf al-hizb or something, to where you're going to do the Qur'an at least twice a year. I wouldn't neglect the Qur'an like that. And for those who don't know Arabic, it's good to read translations, but just recognize the limitations of translation. And then also you have to go to the Book of Allah. And we're going to get into this when we get into the section on the knowledges that you have to know in order to interpret the Qur'an. You have to know a lot of knowledges. I mean, just the huruf of Qur'an are very difficult. I mean, it takes quite, you look at like a letter like aw, alif, wow. I mean, it has all these possibilities in the Qur'an, It's a atf generally, harfu atf, it's a conjunction. But sometimes it means shak, it means doubt. Sometimes it means takhyir, it's like a choice. Sometimes it means ibham, it's leaving something ambiguous. Sometimes it means idrab, like it's, sometimes it means tafsil, and sometimes it just means wow. It literally has the same meaning as wow, as a conjunction. So that's just one letter in the Qur'an. So you have a lot of that. And one of the things about AI can't deal with prepositions. It's the big bugbear in AI, because prepositions are so complicated in all languages, because they have multiple possibilities. And we tend to forget these things. Like if you just take a word, like look in the Bantam dictionary under the word follow. Just look under like Bantam's dictionary, follow, and look at all of the nuanced meanings of follow. Like I need to follow up on that. I'd follow him anywhere. He followed him in the directorship. I mean, it just has all these meanings, and we learn them just through education. We don't think about these things because language acquisition is such a mystery. So you have to be very humble going to the Qur'an. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وتب علينا اللهم لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وقوت الأرواح وغذائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما اللهم اجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا وجلاء همومنا وذهاب غمومنا اللهم اجعل هذا الكتاب جاريا على ألسنتنا معمولا في أركاننا يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إن شاء الله اجعل آخر كلمتنا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وتقبل منا صيامنا وقيامنا مع تقصيرنا يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين